Hello, welcome back. Next part of You Are Awesome coming up. So part 4. At the end of the last one, we heard about some famous failures, including J.K. Rowling. Okay, so here we go. Make friends with feedback. When I was 13, I had dreams of becoming a spy. So for fun, I used to hide and see how long it would take for my parents to notice I was spying on them. Strangely, they never did. At the time, I thought it was because I was Reading's answer to James Bond, an awesome spy destined for MI6. Looking back, they probably knew I was behind the TV all along, but were so happy I wasn't digging that hole to Australia in their flower beds anymore, they just let me get on with it. But, you see, while I thought I was honing my 007 skills, I was actually just sitting in silence on my own. How could I possibly know if I was becoming more like Bond if I never got any feedback? A bit like practicing basketball in the dark. How would you ever know if you'd got the ball in the basket? You need the lights on and the knowledge that you missed by a country mile or that you just missed by a millimetre to adapt your attempt next time. Ice skaters or gymnasts get almost instant feedback when they try something new like a somersault. How? Because if it goes wrong, they clonk their heads on the floor. It's painful, but a quick way to know that they need to do something different next time. To get really good at something, you need to find your own equivalent of the head clonk, preferably someone who will give you honest feedback about where you're going wrong and need to improve. It could be a parent, teacher, coach, or friend. The crucial thing is you trust them to be honest with you. If you're on a mission to become good at something on your own, become your own critic. The key is to be honest in your view of how you're doing. It's the surest way to learn and improve. So over to you. Practice, practice, practice. And we talked about this in assembly, right? Think of something you've always wanted to get better at. Can you think of 3 ways you could practice it in a more difficult way to really stretch yourself? Genius or what? How do you feel when you see an amazing free kick in football that curls into the goal from the halfway line, a chess grandmaster getting to checkmate in 5 minutes flat, the kid in your class that seems to always come top in every test, the star of the school play who can remember all of their lines and doesn't seem to get nervous at all, the perfect forehand smash in table tennis, taken 15 metres from the table? Yes, I can. Well, I used to be able to, at least. I know, it's tough to imagine Beyoncé as a toddler or a time where Neymar had never kicked a football. But these world superstars began life just like you and me. In other words, to get where they are today, they had to embrace opportunity, try out new skills and be prepared to get things wrong. Understanding exactly how people become awesome at stuff is crucial to building a growth mindset. The case of Kid Awesome. Remember the table tennis table in my garage and the super competitive brother? When I looked effortlessly good at table tennis at school in my role as Kid Awesome, no one knew the full story. And just think about how Kid Average reacted when he watched the live coverage of the National Table Tennis Championship final. As Kid Awesome battled for the win, Kid Average couldn't believe the level of speed and skill on show. The young contender on screen might have looked strangely familiar to him, but what really commanded his attention was the way Kid Awesome dominated the game. He'd never seen skills like it. With his feet up on the sofa and one eye on the door in case his mum came in and got cross, Kid Average watched the winner and no doubt felt strangely flat. Just then it must have seemed to him that some people are born to be amazing, while others never show a sign of being good at anything. If only he had pressed pause and considered what had really gone into Kid Awesome's amazing game. What Kid Average didn't see. One awesome moment. That's what Kid Average witnessed when Kid Awesome secures his crown as a champion table tennis player. What he doesn't see is the long and sometimes difficult journey that led here. The fact is, Kid Awesome has devoted hours to challenging practice. Yes, this moment of victory might have made it all worthwhile, but let me tell you now, there were moments in Kid Awesome's journey when he questioned his abilities. Tiredness, defeat, even boredom can become obstacles on the path to awesome. It takes a particular kind of determination to overcome them, and even more to use them as a learning experience. Without such challenges and difficulties, in fact, Kid Awesome's final victory would not have been so sweet. If only Kid Average knew that he once stood in exactly the same spot as Kid Awesome, there in the garage before the fork in their lives. No, not that kind of fork. Took them in different directions. Our ordinary boy had the same opportunities available to become really good at table tennis and then work hard at becoming the best. Instead, he chose to take the less challenging course through life and walk away from the table tennis table. As a result, having turned into the closing stage of the epic journey he could have taken, Kid Average considers Kid Awesome's achievements to be completely beyond his reach. Everyone makes mistakes. Nobody hits a perfect note on the first attempt at singing or finds they can effortlessly dribble a football straight away. It's a question of learning from experience and recognizing that any learning experience involves making plenty of mistakes. When we witness someone performing at a high level, it doesn't make for very good viewing if the pianist we paid to see can't remember the notes or the racing driver repeatedly stalls the car. As a result, when it comes to success, we don't often see the whole story. From the hours that have gone into that amazing performance to the times they have landed face first or hit the wrong notes. When we see someone else's physics exam success, or a great piano performance, or a spectacular win on the tennis court, it's all too easy to fall back into our old ideas of the talent trap. The belief that the person you are watching has been born that way, and hey presto, the fixed mindset is back. So let's get into our growth mindset groove. But first, to help us on our way, let's take a look at another famous failure, Jay-Z. As the millions of records sold multi-Grammy award-winning rapper, the millionaire businessman, the man who even managed to marry actual Beyonce, that Jay-Z? No, not only is Jay-Z one of the most successful musicians of all time, he also owns a record label, has numerous clothes lines, a drinks company, a tech company, and his own music streaming service. And, I really don't think this can be said enough, he married Beyonce. In what parallel universe could he possibly be considered to have failed? Well, the music business can be tough to crack, as Jay-Z discovered when he first started out. The young hip-hop artist struggled to find a record label that would back him. No one would give him a break. But rather than give up, Jay-Z sold his CDs out of his car before founding his own record label. And the rest is history. Not only did he create a launch pad for his own music, he also went on to become one of the world's most successful business visionaries and responsible for the careers of stars including Rihanna. What a comeback! And he said, "I will not lose, for even in defeat there's a valuable lesson learned. So it evens up for me. You learn more in failure than you ever do in success." Oh, I like that. I'm going to say that again. You learn more in failure than you ever do in success. Right, finding your growth mindset groove. We know about neuroplasticity. We learned about it last time. We know it takes a long time to build the neural connections needed to be brilliant at anything. So the performance we are watching must be the result of really loads of practice. No one gets good at playing football by simply stretching before the match. No one aces the physics test just by thinking about Stephen Hawking on the bus on the way to school. These things take time, effort, and determination. They take practice. I hope we have said it enough times now. And let's face it, this idea of talent is everywhere. Roger Federer has been said to have tennis encoded in his DNA. Simone Biles is described as in the US as a natural daredevil. As if you come into the world all ready to launch into a triple somersault and land straight on your feet. Tiger Woods is said to have been born to play golf. So come with me on a journey to debunk a few famous talent myths. Mozart. What people think. He was a child prodigy, composing pieces for the violin and piano by the age of 6 and producing many works before his 10th birthday. Quite simply, Mozart was born a musical genius. The facts. Mozart's father was also a composer and performer, as well as an expert teacher. What's more, he was a dedicated dad who put his son through intensive musical training from the age of 3. By the time Mozart was 6, he'd put in about 3,500 hours of practice. Mozart was a child prodigy who composed music when he was super young, but only because he had done a whole heap of practice under the watchful eye of his dad. How many 6-year-olds do you know have done all that practice? Mozart's masterpiece is Piano Concerto No. 9, which he composed aged 21. Yeah, that's still pretty young, but he was no longer a child at this age, and by 21, Mozart had done even more practice. So, rather than being born to play, Mozart actually set out on the road to excellence at a really early age and worked at it every step of the way. And this is what he says, look down here. I too had to work hard so as not to have to work any longer. Right, Serena Williams, what people think. A born tennis genius, super talented, a sporting legend. The facts. Serena started playing tennis with her dad when she was 3 years old. She played for 2 hours every day. Seriously, just imagine how good you might have been if you'd played tennis for 2 hours every single day since you were 3. That's not to say that playing so much tennis at such a young age is a good idea, but it is to say that so-called child prodigies are not just born with all that skill. They have to work and work at it. The good news is that Serena loved tennis. It was her passion. She played on courts with potholes and sometimes without nets, which could sometimes make things a bit tricky. Over time, she developed grit, determination, and, most importantly, skill through the thousands of hours of difficult practice she put in. She had an older sister to practice with to stretch her too. Serena has also made many mistakes on her journey to sporting legend status. Some years after her first Grand Slam win, her world ranking slumped to 139 as she struggled with family troubles and injury. She didn't give up though. She dug deep, and when she won her 20th Grand Slam in 2015, she told the crowd, in French because she'd learnt that too, "When I was a little girl in California, my father and mother wanted me to play tennis, and now here I am with 20 Grand Slam titles." Her hard work, resilience, and determination had paid off. And this is what she said, look. I really think a champion is defined not by their wins, but how they can recover when they fail. Nice. Was that Nelson Mandela said something similar in our assembly quotes, didn't he? The Bronte sisters, have you heard of them? What people think. If 3 sisters can write some of the finest works of English literature, they must share some very special genes. What do you think? Do you think that's right? Well, let's find out. The facts. It's fair to say that growing up in rural Yorkshire in the 19th century was basically tech-free. With no internet or TV, Charlotte, Emily, and Anne Bronte entertained each other by telling short stories they'd made up. They invented entire worlds full of made-up characters and acted out scenarios between them. They also made friends with feedback. As close-knit siblings, they felt able to criticize each other's efforts constructively, which helped them all to improve. Then the sisters began to write their stories down in tiny matchbox-sized books so that adults couldn't pry and spoil their fun. As time went by, they wrote hundreds of stories, which helped them to harness the power of their imaginations and to practice their writing and storytelling skills over and over and over again. One day, when they were grown up, Charlotte found a book of poems written by Emily. Inspired by how good they were, she persuaded her sisters to work together with her on a book of poetry. Again, because they were so close, they were able to criticize and help each other in the most valuable of ways. So their poetry book was eventually published, and the women were inspired to keep writing. Eventually, the sisters went on to pen seminal works of English literature, novels such as Jane Eyre, Charlotte, Wuthering Heights, Emily. Classics that are read and loved to this day, and the women have gone down in history as some of the most famous siblings of all time. But their books didn't just happen. The Brontes practiced their writing and honed their craft for years before creating their masterpiece. David Beckham. This is a goodie. You'll all have heard of him. What people think. Beckham scored an astonishing 65 goals from free kicks during his career. If you hate football, just know that 65 is an awesome achievement. It led people to say to him, "It's like you were born taking these free kicks. Football must be in your DNA." The facts. David Beckham, now retired, was an awesome footballer. He played for England, Manchester United, and Real Madrid, to name but a few teams. He laughed when a journalist suggested he was born wearing studded boots. No one saw how hard I worked as a kid, he said. No one saw how much I wanted to be good at this. That's the thing, isn't it? That's what we've talked about in assembly. Passion. How many keepy uppies can you do? I reckon I might manage 4 at a push if the ball is bigger than usual. David Beckham could do 3 when he was 7. So basically the same as you or me. So what took David Beckham from performing a couple of keepy uppies to a number that will blow your mind? Perhaps the best person to ask is his mum, Sandra. This is what she said. Look, top of this page over here. I was amazed at how devoted he was, she says, remembering how she would watch him through the kitchen window. He would start when he got back from school and then continue until his dad got back from work. Then they would go down to the park to practice some more. He was such an amazing kid when it came to his appetite for hard work. Slowly, Beckham improved. After 6 months, he could get up to 50 keepy uppies. 6 months after that, he was up to 200, which I'm sure you'll agree is an impressive number. But by the time he got to the age of 9, he had reached a new record that can only take your breath away, a whopping 2,003. In total, it took him 15 minutes to do it, and his legs ached at the end. If you saw someone do thousands of keepy uppies, you would possibly assume they had a natural gift, and you might also think you'd never be able to achieve anything close. Both of these conclusions are completely understandable. What matters is you see through them on your own journey to becoming awesome. It might not make you Beckham, but there's nothing stopping you from becoming so good at something that people just assume that you're superhuman too. None of this is to say it's a good idea to focus on one activity from a young age. Often it's better to try lots of things and to have fun doing them all before zoning in on your passion. But it is to say that success is a journey, even for so-called child prodigies. They didn't inherit their success. They just started that journey very early in life. Look at this next page. Appetite for hard work. Human calculators. What people think. You're either good at maths or you're not. Some people have a brain for numbers, and some can do the most extraordinary calculations in their heads. While you and I might struggle with 9 times 12, Shakuntala Devi, born in Bangalore in 1929, when TV had barely been invented and no one had even thought of mobile phones, could multiply 2 13-digit numbers together in his head. So something like, look at that big number there. Wow, in 28 seconds flat. Look at these numbers here. That's enormous. That's such a big number. It's even really hard to read because it's more than 1 million, isn't it? So that is, what is that? 6,984,701,000. No, it's even bigger than that. Wowee. Well, I'm stuck already. The facts. When we see a human calculator or even someone in class who's much better than we are at maths, it's easy to think it must be down to some kind of talent or gift, that the answers appear in their head as if they were put there by some kind of maths fairy. But is there a fairy? Or a second set of inborn gifts? Or is there a method? Is there a way of practicing this skill? I think there is. Let's have a go. Don't groan. Where's your growth mindset with your maths mojo? Let's start with 23 times 17. My friend actually got asked this in an interview once for a job. She got the question right, but didn't get the job. Never understood why. Can you do this in your head? Possibly, but probably not. Okay, so now they're going to show you how to do it, all right? Step 1, 10 times 23 makes 230. Let's call this your subtotal. Remember this. Come on, that's not too tricky. Step 2, 20 times 7, that's 140. So you know that, don't you? Because you can do 2 times 7 and then add the 0, right? Or times it by 10 rather. Step 3, add 140 to 230 in your head. Makes 370. Remember this. Now this is your new subtotal. Step 4, an easy one now. 7 times 3, 21. Step 5, add 370 to 21 and get the final answer. 391. Bingo! All of a sudden, there are 5 relatively easy steps and you've got the answer. The only tricky bit is remembering the process to follow, and then at each stage, remembering the subtotal to keep adding to. So hang on, you have to do some times tables, we all know those, and remember one subtotal at a time. That's all. That's it. That's where the maths fairy is in all of this. Suddenly, it all seems a lot less tricky, doesn't it? Maybe those human calculators don't have superhuman maths genes after all. Now, granted, there are more steps involved if you're trying to multiply 123 times 456, and even more if you're doing those really long numbers. But the method can be exactly the same, and the method is not that hard if you want to give it a go. This is what Professor Carol Dweck said. Look, it's not always people who start out the smartest who end up the smartest. Well done, Carol. I enjoy that quote a lot. Check out challenge. A French scientist took two children known as human calculators or maths prodigies and compared their ability to multiply three-digit numbers together. So, for example, 768 times 376 with a group of checkout cashiers from a French supermarket, Bon Marché. The cashiers had worked at the supermarket for 14 years and had no gift for maths other than the practice of calculating the prices of goods they sold each day. This was back in 1826, well before anyone had a calculator, let alone a cash till, and so they did all of their addition in their heads. The supermarket staff were better and faster than the child prodigies. 14 years of purposeful practice had honed their math skills. Right, what talent really looks like. Here are the more common words and phrases that a successful individual or team would associate with their achievements. Belief, being positive, open-minded, practice, effort, confidence, making thousands of mistakes, challenging yourself, learning again and again. So the next time you witness a human do something seemingly out of this world, imagine yourself in their shoes. Remind yourself how much work has gone into this moment and how they started from the same point as everyone else, with a dream and determination to make it come true. So we are now well underway with our mission to be awesome. We're in a growth mindset. Our neural connections are growing faster than Justin Bieber's fan club, and we know the best ways to practice. It does take a while to get good at stuff. There's quite a lot of practice involved, but that's okay. We're up for the challenge, aren't we? So let's get to it. Over to you. Getting good at stuff, your essential toolkit. So you've started to shake your growth mindset, tick. You're starting to view mistakes not as failures, but as learning opportunities, tick, tick. You're prepared to put in tons of challenging practice to improve, tick, tick, tick. Your growth mindset mantra. Remind yourself of these key steps if things start to get a bit tricky. I'm going to practice hard. I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to be positive about it. And I'm going to be really proud of it. And this is tomorrow's bit, chapter 6, small steps and giant leaps. And that will be our final section. All right, latest potatoes.